I think this morning is a great reminder to continue to practice patience, an important element to life. Well, good morning and welcome to Cullen. I'm currently staying here for 4 nights at the Royal Oak Hotel, hosting a 5-day mindful coastal photography retreat. And each morning before we have breakfast and head out on our day of photographic explorations, I invite the group just to have some me time in the morning, whether they want to rest in their room, go for a walk down the beach, do some journaling, do some meditating, whatever they want to do in the morning to start their day. It's a lovely opportunity just to connect with the environment and just spend some quiet time before, like I say, we begin our photographic explorations for the day. So while they're all enjoying their alone time, I thought it was a great opportunity to come out and film this week's video. I have to say, it's such a blessing to wake up and be surrounded by the coast. I had a really interesting experience this morning. When I woke up and I opened my curtains and I saw that it was cloudy, I didn't feel disappointed. And it's really interesting because earlier on in my photographic journey, I pretty much only ever photographed the coast. It was like my passion and I absolutely loved it. And I still, of course, do it from time to time now, although I've branched out more into kind of all the different areas of nature photography, and of course I do a lot of macro in the woodlands and by lakes and stuff like that, which is really, really lovely. But it was really eye-opening for me this morning to wake up and just be like, it is a grey, overcast morning. The light is nice and diffused, some people would say, especially portrait photographers. But for those of us that do more landscape and nature style photography, we can sometimes feel a bit disheartened because we want colour or vibrancy or contrast or just some nice light coming through the clouds to add some interest. But to wake up this morning and just have this sense of acceptance, it was really, really reassuring and lovely, because I can guarantee you 4 years ago, maybe even a couple of years ago, if I'd have woken up to conditions like this, I probably wouldn't have headed out. I would have said, nah, not today. But I just thought there's always opportunities. I say it all the time, there's always opportunities. And while we're staying somewhere beautiful like this, it's worth getting out and enjoying these beautiful moments, regardless of the conditions, because there's always something to photograph. Now last night we had the most beautiful blue colours over the sea, and if we had something similar this morning, I probably would photograph it. But something that really caught my eye last night was the smaller details. Of course I do a lot of macro these days, so I look at things now that I would never have looked at back in my traditional landscape photography days. And coming down here this morning, I'm just looking at some of these rocks, and especially this one here. I just love these lines, these textures, and these areas here with the barnacles against the rock. I just think, you know, when you zoom out and you look at this in the landscape, just to pose a question to you here, would you have thought to look there, or would you always have been looking here? There's no right or wrong answer, but it's just posing this question, because if you ever come out and you find yourself in conditions that may not lend themselves ideally to landscape photography, although this weather is great for black and white and stuff like that, looking at these smaller details can just open up a whole new world of opportunity, and this is certainly going to be my first image of today. I have to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit this morning. I fully intended to take my tripod out with me, but I think because I've got so used to not taking it out with me, I left it in the car. And I could have gone back and got it, but because we're having breakfast shortly, I thought, no, let's get down to the beach and let's try and do some things handheld. But I'm regretting that decision now, because with it being relatively dull today, I'm trying to do handheld macro here. It's proving to be very challenging. I'm using high ISO values, I'm struggling to keep the camera still, and the images are a little bit blurred. I guess I'm so used to doing macro during kind of the daylight hours, you know, much more around mid-morning to early evening when the sun tends to be and the light tends to be a bit more intense. So I think, you know, it doesn't matter how many years you've been doing photography for, we're always growing, learning, evolving, and sometimes we forget things and then we relearn them along the journey. So this morning has re-taught me that if I'm out early in the morning, to make sure I take my tripod with me, unless it's a sunny morning where it's not cloudy and you've got that beautiful early morning sunlight. But on mornings like this morning, I think a tripod is definitely needed. But I'm not going to give up. I've got about another 10 minutes before I need to head into the hotel for breakfast. So I'm going to keep going and see if any of these images will be sharp enough to show you. Look, the sun is trying hard to come through the clouds. Look at these birds. The light at this side seems to be brighter, or maybe it's the sun trying to come through the clouds. I'm able to get a faster shutter speed with the same settings. Sometimes you just got to wait a few minutes and then the conditions change, especially at the coast. It changes so quickly. But that's what's exciting. I think it's also part of that mindful process and developing patience. I think this morning is a great reminder to continue to practice patience, an important element to life. Well, it's time to head back for breakfast. I'm not going to say this morning's outing was particularly successful, but it's nice to get out anyway, you know, early in the morning and just do a bit of photography, connect with the coast, enjoy the sights and sounds of the sea. So maybe this afternoon on the break that we have, I may come out and film some more of this video, but if not, probably tomorrow morning, get part 2 done and see if the conditions are any different tomorrow. Good morning, and what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, I've not looked back at the footage from yesterday morning, but I wasn't really feeling in the zone for photography. I was kind of forcing myself, if I'm honest, and I've had a quick look back at the images and I'm pretty certain it shows. But today I'm feeling so much more energised. I've got half an hour until meeting the group for breakfast, so I'm just out for a lovely little walk to just get my bearings for the day, get me ready, get my body moving, enjoy some time in nature. And something we did yesterday was we went to some of the traditional coastal villages in Aberdeenshire. One's called Crivy and one's called Pennon. And one of the things that we ended up photographing was this beautiful yellow lichen growing on the pier in Pennon. And the images that we created, I think, were really, really lovely. And there was also these beautiful reflections in this small harbour area with a boat, and also the green grass on the hill was reflecting in the water, creating some beautiful colours. So pretty much right beside the hotel, there is another little traditional harbour here in Cullen. So I'm just taking a quick walk down here this morning to see if there is anything similar here to continue photographing those subjects, because I really, really enjoyed it yesterday. It is low tide right now, so the opportunity of photographing that with the water isn't probably going to be possible, but I'm just going to see what's there. I mean, why not? It's nice to go out early in the morning for a walk before breakfast, and especially when you're in a location like this, it's a great way to start the day. Gosh, the tide is really low this morning. There's not any water in the harbour at all, apart from a couple of little pools. All the boats are just on top of the sands. It's quite interesting to see. And all of the worms that are underneath the sands have come up, and we've got all the beautiful swirly patterns. I'm trying to decide what to photograph here. I'm looking at some of these creels and things. So far I'm not really seeing any lichen, which had been my original plan. But you know me by now, if you watch my channel regularly. I just head out and see what I can photograph. I may have a slight idea of what I'm looking for, but if it's not there, there's always something. So yeah, I've got 20 minutes left now until breakfast. But I can guarantee you I will come back with at least 2 images. I'm currently looking at all of these black areas on top of the wall. You can see we also have a little bit of the lichen, a lot less than what there was the pier and Pennon yesterday. But I'm quite intrigued by these black areas. I suspect it's probably tar or something that they may have used, with something to do with the harbour and the fishing. But I think it's quite interesting here, especially where you've got some of the smaller little stones amongst it. Could make for some interesting abstract images. I'm also quite intrigued by these cracks on the ground here. Again, a great opportunity for some abstract images. And we've got some of the lichens and things there, or some rust sort of areas. If you just look at all the different colours within this, it's quite fascinating. Now this old bit of wood is fascinating. Look at how the sea has eroded that over the years. I don't think I'm going to photograph it, but I just think it's such an interesting thing. If I had my macro lens with me, which I don't, it would have been a great subject. But for now I'm going to see what sort of things I can make work with this one, my 24-200. This kind of light that we have this morning, this more muted light, is often really nice for finding a little bit of colour, whether it's some colour on a shell, colour in the creels, yeah, something like that. These old traditional fishing harbours are absolutely fascinating for photography. We're really blessed in this part of Scotland, in both the Moray coast and the Aberdeenshire coast. It's like this stretch. If you look on the map and you find Inverness and then you look along to Fraserburgh, that stretch of coastline along there and what we kind of call the northeast of Scotland, there's so many little fishing villages and little fishing towns with lovely harbours, piers. Some of them are still used for commercial purposes, but many of them now are either pleasure harbours or in some cases aren't even used at all. And there's so many piers, so many little areas like this, and although there's many similarities between them, they all have a pier, they all have the kind of breakwater, every one has some uniqueness to it as well. You know, every single one. You could go on a whole couple of weeks of just touring all these different harbours and photographing them. And after yesterday's outing to Pennon and Crivy, they're places I used to visit quite regularly when I lived in Aberdeenshire, not so much these days, but it really inspired me to go there in the coming months of the summer and just do like a whole outing photographing these piers and harbours. and creating, abstract images of the water, the shapes and textures and patterns on the harbour themselves. And, they're made with some incredible stone and material. And there's just so much colour within this. And where I am just now, if I just take this down slightly, there's all these tiny little stones in here. Each one has got its own unique shape, its own unique colour. I mean, the texture of it is quite incredible as well. You could make millions of images in places like this. It's just extraordinary. And I'm having a great time in this retreat, taking people to locations like this to see it for themselves and just spend time in them. I think it's so interesting, I think, to go back to these traditional places and spend some time in them and imagine what they would have been like in their heyday, but also what they're like now as the sea and the weather has battered them and eroded them over the years. There's so much story, so much photography. And if you're ever in Scotland, I'd highly recommend coming to this part of the world, because while the epic landscapes of the Highlands, the places like Glencoe and Skye are so iconic and well worth visiting, places like these are equally as characterful and interesting. And especially if you like the coast and traditional historic places, these are well worth visiting. Well, there we have it. A wee bit rushed this morning, but it was nice to still head out, go for a walk before breakfast and enjoy this beautiful coastal location. I hope this video has inspired you to get up and go for a nice walk before breakfast. It's such a lovely thing to do, and especially when you're away, I think it's lovely. And who knows, maybe even inspire you to come to the coast if you don't already live by the sea. It's such a lovely place to spend time. Oh, it's so freeing. And I'm considering doing another one of these retreats that I'm hosting this week next year. So if that's of interest to you, make sure you're signed up to my email newsletter. And if I do decide to do so, the details of that will be announced very, very soon. As always, I want to say a huge thank you for watching and wishing you a very blessed and creative week.